Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I'm John Carroll in for Maya Trabulsi. State Farm Insurance is calling the Los Angeles wildfires the costliest disaster in its history of doing business. As a result, they say they fear for the future of the company and are requesting an emergency rate increase on all customers. KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne explains what that could mean.
Following the devastating wildfires in Los Angeles, State Farm reports having received over 8,000 claims and over $1 billion in payouts to customers. The company fears these large payouts could jeopardize future claims and the future of the company itself. So they've asked California's insurance commissioner for an emergency rate increase. Investment properties could see a 22% increase in rates. Renters and condo owners face a 15% increase, and rental properties face 38%.
It's really a shame that State Farm is using this tragedy to try and extract another massive rate increase from the pockets of Californians to line its bank accounts.
Carmen Balber is the executive director of Consumer Watchdog, a consumer protection organization. She says State Farm has been profitable in California's homeowners insurance for the last 4 years.
The parent company of State Farm has $134 million in the bank, and State Farm has been sending profits out of the state in the form of reinsurance to its parent company. So if anyone needs to step in to shore up State Farm's finances, it's the parent company with billions of dollars in the bank, not California homeowners.
And it's not the first time. Balber says in 2023, State Farm got approval on a rate increase request that resulted in $470 million. The company returned in 2024 to request another rate increase, but failed to justify the request.
Consumer Watchdog and the Department of Insurance asked State Farm to open its books and justify its finances in order to get that rate increase, and the company refused to provide that information. So that request has been outstanding since last July when it made it, because State Farm wouldn't prove up the numbers.
She says any insurance company can request an increase in rates at any time, but must justify their request. State Farm declined to comment on their request for the rate hikes. It will be up to the insurance commissioner's office to approve and or investigate the request. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
While many unfortunately lost their homes in the Eaton fire, the cavalry arrived just in time for one survivor as she fought to save hers. We have that story coming up.
Well, looking ahead to the next few days, we are tracking increasing cloud cover. Even tonight, you'll see the results of this increasing moisture and, of course, those increasing rain chances. Light rain, but still, we're tracking that at least throughout the end of the work week. Tonight, though, we're dropping down to a low of 52. We'll break down those rain chances and how temperatures will continue to cool down.
China is hitting back on President Trump's tariffs, and the back and forth between the world's two largest economies could put the American consumer in the middle. Here's Karen Kafa with what consumers need to know now.
The day after Mexico and Canada negotiated respective 30-day pauses on President Donald Trump's proposed 25% tariffs on their goods coming into the U.S.
We've found a good, I think, accommodation here, and we're going to be showing progress over the next 30 days.
Trump's 10% tariff on all goods coming to the U.S. from China took effect after midnight on Tuesday, and Beijing pushed back with tariffs on some U.S. energy and metals imports. The moves elevating trade tensions between the world's two largest economies, and eventually the American consumer could get caught in the middle.
I think it's a lose-lose. It's just a question of how big the loss. It raises prices, raises inflation, and Of course, we've been through a very wrenching period globally with high inflation. It's been a real problem.
Among items that could see higher prices, consumer electronics like phones, TVs, and computers, toys, jewelry, silverware, and sporting equipment, and shoes and sneakers imported in large numbers from China. The real impact will be felt once businesses deplete their current warehouse stock and need to bring in more, unless the U.S. and China strike a deal soon. Democrats note that tariffs don't align with the economic relief Trump promised in his 2024 campaign.
Tariffs will undoubtedly drive up costs. You shared some of those numbers earlier, and people are living paycheck to paycheck. This is the opposite of what Trump ran on and what the American people want.
In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
Immigrant rights groups are taking the fight against President Trump's immigration policies to court. A lawsuit was filed in D.C. yesterday. The group says the president's order to seal off the U.S.-Mexico border to asylum seekers is, quote, as unlawful as it is unprecedented. They also argue the president's authority does not allow the expulsion of non-citizens already in the U.S., but the lawsuit does not seek a temporary restraining order. Today, California Attorney General Rob Bonta reiterated his message that California schools will continue to be a welcoming place for all. KPBS reporter Melissa May tells us Bonta is responding to a Department of Homeland Security directive expanding immigration enforcement to include schools.
California Attorney General Rob Bonta says the flurry of executive orders from the Trump administration are making many people uncertain of their rights and protections.
We've had many reports of anecdotal situations in which parents aren't going to work and students aren't going to school. So we haven't been able to identify exactly what that looks like statistically, but we know that it is prevalent and that it's happening.
Bonta says California schools will continue to be a, quote, safe place for all.
All students have the right to an education, regardless of their immigration status or the immigration status of anyone in their family.
He says families have a right to keep their children's personal and education records confidential.
Families should know that they don't have to share passports, visas, or a social security number, or even citizenship information to enroll their child in school.
Bonta says school officials cannot prevent federal immigration authorities from being in public places, including school parking lots and lobbies. But
first, if ICE shows up, the school should alert their local educational agency administrator and legal counsel immediately. They should ask to see the officer's credentials and any documentation that would authorize school access. And they should document everything that happens during the exchange.
This week, the San Diego Unified School District published a statement on the guidance it's given to staff. It reads in part, quote, school staff won't give access to U.S. immigration and customs enforcement officials without a judicial warrant. The California Department of Justice has a Know Your Immigration Rights Consumer Alert Guide and a guide for students and families on their website, oag.ca.gov. Bonta says anyone who witnesses concerning immigration-related activity should email his office at immigration@doj.ca.gov. Melissa May, KPBS News.
Ruth Ben-Ghiat is well-versed in authoritarian leaders. She wrote the book Strong Men, Mussolini to the Present. She spoke with KPBS Public Matters reporter Amitha Sharma about President Donald Trump's first few weeks in office, about pardons and journalism.
So we are 2 weeks into President Trump's second term. So far, he has frozen federal funding, then rescinded the directive, but it's still unclear what will happen on that front. He has issued executive orders that include stopping funding to schools that teach about racism but don't teach about patriotism, offering buyouts to 2 million federal employees, and sending undocumented people to detention centers. What moves has the president made so far that trouble you the most, and what gives you hope?
All of it troubles me because this overreach of executive authority, the speed at which he's doing things is unusual. We also have what I consider a national emergency in which a private citizen, Elon Musk, and some surrogates who seem to be, Wired reported, they're like college student age, have taken control of portions of the federal bureaucracy's payment systems, like the General Services Administration, and have locked out federal employees from computer systems. And that is something totally new in the authoritarian playbooks. I am hopeful because we're seeing from within the FBI, from within the civil service, resistance to this encroachment of executive authority, these politically motivated purges of career, honest, ethical professionals.
This process of mass deportations is there. Tens of thousands of people here in San Diego will be affected. Trump's cabinet members have also spoken about limiting legal immigration. Connect the history of strong men to what we're seeing on this immigration front.
I have quotes from Mussolini in my book Strong Men that sound like they're from Today in America or from Orban's Hungary, where Mussolini complained that what he called black, brown, and yellow people were having too many babies, threatening white Christian civilization. And so the response has been often to either detain them and other enemies of the state, so-called, in prisons or to deport them.
Speaking of prisons, Trump has pardoned 1,500 people who were prosecuted for participating in the January 6th insurrection. Federal prosecutors in San Diego worked on over 60 of those cases here and elsewhere in the country. What message do the pardons send to those prosecutors and the people who were convicted? And what do they say about the state of our democracy?
There could be no clear signal of what values are going to be privileged in deciding to pardon people who assaulted the temple of our democracy, the Capitol, and assaulted Capitol police officers and had weapons and defecated, excuse me, but it's the truth, inside the Capitol building, trashed everything. And these were thugs, these were vandals, and now they're being pardoned and treated as patriots. This has been part of the messaging, is that these are the patriots.
So, Professor Ben-Ghiat, 8 years ago, a resistance movement mobilized to counteract Trump as he started his first term. I've spoken to local scientists about potentially losing their funding and some federal workers who received buyout offers. They wonder aloud who is advocating for them. There's a belief that there's no counterweight to the executive orders, that the opposition has almost rolled over. How do you interpret what's happening?
I believe that may change. The thing about now is that we are not even, we're like 2 weeks into this, and each day has seemed like a week in itself. And so we have to get our bearings and remember that we have a history of effective protest.
Sir Ben-Ghiat, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
It's a pleasure.
Public Matters is a partnership with KPBS, iNews Source, and Voice of San Diego. You can see more of our stories at kpbs.org/Public Matters.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard clear a major hurdle to take on top positions within the Trump administration. It's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Crews in D.C. are balancing two important missions, pulling debris from two aircraft that crashed and fell into the Potomac River, and searching for the remains of those still in the wreckage. Laura Aguirre brings us more on the NTSB's search for answers.
Just having the CVR and FDR from the plane is just part of the story.
The chair of the NTSB discussing the complex puzzle that investigators are piecing together. Data from the American Airlines jet's cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder, the CVR and FDR, is being analyzed. The jet plunged into the Potomac after a midair collision with an Army Black Hawk helicopter last week. The combination CVR and FDR from the Black Hawk has also been recovered.
Now they're taking that data and making sure that it's accurate, that the timestamps are right, to try to marry it up with the CVR FDR data from the plane.
The NTSB says the Blackhawk's black box did not have timestamps. They will have to manually create those, likely pushing out those findings about a month. Preliminary findings from the plane show the jet's nose pitching up moments before the crash, indicating the crew may have seen the Blackhawk, but too late. There's also been heavy speculation that the Blackhawk may have been higher than the 200-foot altitude limit of its designated flight corridor.
We'll have the Blackhawk, but then we'll take the plane and lay it out so it can be evaluated to figure out what the angle of the collision was.
While a final report from the NTSB could take a year or more, addressing any safety gaps could move much faster.
At any time, the NTSB can issue an urgent safety recommendation. We don't have to wait till the end, and if we see there's a need, we'll do it.
I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
The San Diego City Council has adopted new restrictions on sales of affordable housing. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the goal is to keep those homes affordable.
The ordinance covers properties with deed restrictions that limit rents to affordable levels. When owners intend to sell, they'll have to give first right of refusal to a list of qualified buyers that build and maintain affordable housing. Councilmember Kent Lee said each year, roughly 200 affordable homes see their deed restrictions expire, meaning they could become unaffordable.
I think it's fair to compare the challenge that we have to having a hole in San Diego's affordable housing bucket, where no matter how much we keep pouring in through new affordable deed-restricted units, we're simultaneously losing existing affordable homes.
Even proponents of the Affordable Housing Preservation Ordinance acknowledged it has limitations. Affordable housing developers often struggle to compete in the free market of real estate.
This policy is good. I'm very happy it's in front of us, but what's really needed to make sure that we build upon it is ensuring that there's funding there to act on the opportunities that will be presented to the Housing Commission and to the public when, as a result of this policy.
In the next 15 years, roughly 4,200 affordable homes will see their deed restrictions expire, after which they can be converted into market rate housing. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
San Diego County officials say they expect an increase in mental health holds this year over last. That's because an updated California law now allows involuntary psychiatric holds for people with severe substance use disorders. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco says the county is working with community partners to expand treatment options.
I don't know why I became homeless. I just did. It just happened. We just sit out here.
Cecilia Hughes never imagined she'd end up homeless at 57. Now, she's one of nearly 200 residents at Father Joe's Village's new sober living shelter. The facility opened this year with nearly 250 beds.
For people who are committed to abstinence from substances and who are committed to working hard with a case manager, saving income while they're living here with us, and quickly exiting to permanent housing.
Changes to the state's conservatorship law means crisis stabilization units and emergency departments will need more referral options. That's where facilities like this come in. Casement says they're part of the solution.
Later this year, in 2025, Father Joe's Villages will be opening 44 beds of detox here on site.
Dr. Luke Bergman oversees behavioral health for the county. He anticipates around 1,500 additional mental health holds under the updated law.
But our crisis stabilization units will really bear the brunt of that initial transport and drop-off. And we've got capacity.
The county says there are 104 detox beds countywide, and officials are adding more treatment options. Last week, the county approved 6 more crisis stabilization beds in Chula Vista. It also approved 30 acute psychiatric beds in National City to serve low-income Medi-Cal patients.
One of the referral pathways that we think will be most important and that will be most frequent will be a referral from crisis stabilization units into outpatient treatment.
For Hughes, having a safe, structured place to rebuild has been life-changing. She takes pride in her space, her neatly made bunk bed, the small routines that give her a sense of purpose. That includes chores.
I do the laundry room from 1 to 2, and then Today I'm going to do the elevator. I'm so excited.
Bergman says demand for beds has started off slowly this year, but they'll be watching closely to see whether more resources will be needed to keep up with demand. Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
Your weather headlines, breaking it all down for you. It's going to be cooler and it's going to be cloudier. That's going to be the overall trend across Southwest California. There are going to be a few chances for light precipitation. Not overall a washout by any means, and even by the weekend we are much drier and warmer. Tonight though, we are dropping down to the 40s here a little bit further north of San Diego. Oceanside, you're at 47, Ramona 42, Mount Laguna, you'll bottom out at 41, but by tomorrow we're rising to 51. Here you'll see the sunshine. The clouds will start to build here, especially closer towards the coast. That is a precursor to what is to come. Let's play it out for you on future radar, even starting you off here a little bit later tonight, and then into the future you're watching some of that precipitation try to sneak further south. We could see a few pop-up showers here. This goes at least through Wednesday. Again, not a big rainmaker, but still you'll feel the differences in the air. We'll have those clouds pretty much socked in as we have this narrow plume of moisture. Still that atmospheric river, we're just turning the winds a little bit here now on the clock, and now we're taking aim a little bit further south. So right along I-5 we are expecting some heavier bouts of rain, and then we have another storm. This one not an atmospheric river event, but still could bring some rain even as far south as probably our northern suburbs of San Diego, even parts of the mountainous terrain across Southern California. To the north though, that's where we'll have that nasty icy mix, and that goes all the way up through the Sierra, where we are expecting another nice thump of snow. Here along the coast, those showers move through. So again, like I said, we aren't ruling out showers. Even by Friday, we're at 63. Temperatures don't take a big hit, but they are down to 63 here, at least through the start of the weekend. By Sunday, we're at 66. Now further inland, we have the clouds Wednesday, showers Thursday, Friday. Temperatures do drop down to the low 60s, but we're back up to 70 there again by Sunday. The mountains, well, you'll have the rain as well. Basically rinse and repeat. Temperatures down to the 40s, and that hangs on through the weekend. And for the deserts, you don't really see too much of a change, except Wednesday and Thursday. That's when you'll start to see a little bit of a drop, but overall pretty comfortable. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
While many lost their homes and loved ones in the wildfires that terrorized Los Angeles, one lucky woman, an Eaton fire survivor, is thanking the crew of firefighters that saved her home. Joy Benedict reports.
Everything all across the street was in flames.
It's a morning no one in Altadena will soon forget. Certainly not Deborah Ross.
Embers this big floating through the air. It was like a dream or something.
She stood outside her home on Olive Avenue trying to save it with a garden hose and prayed for a miracle.
I was screaming and hollering, and I got real scared because dark and the soot.
With moments to spare and flames roaring around her through the dark ash, she saw a different flash of red.
Then the two trucks pulled up. This big, tall, white guy gets out of the fire truck, and he jumps up and he says, "My name is Will, and I'm getting ready to save your house." And I said to him while he was walking, I said, "You don't give a blink about my house." And he said, "Ma'am, I am not going to let your house burn down. I am not going to let your house burn down."
And he and his crew saved it.
In my home, I just got smoke damage.
Walking around her home almost 4 weeks later, still damaged and smoky, Miss Ross can't help but remember the brave men she now calls her heroes.
Well, if you're out there, thank you. I love you guys.
With a little searching, we realized we were there too. We're here on Olive right now, and the crew wasn't too far away. The 4 firefighters who showed up that day came from Cal Fire Riverside Station 73 in Temecula.
Did you find Will?
I did. I found Will. He's right here.
Good afternoon, Deborah.
Captain Will Smith has been a firefighter for more than 20 years.
Was there anything about Deborah that made you remember her?
Oh, yeah, her stubbornness. She was very adamant about staying and doing what she could to defend her home.
Captain Smith and his crew were already on shift when they got the call to go to the Eaton fire that Tuesday night. He says they had already been up for more than 24 hours when firefighter Cameron Cable saw Miss Ross.
I was surprised to find an old lady with a really sweet looking hat trying to put that house out.
He grabbed his captain and fellow crew members and went to work.
It's a good memory to have. Definitely we won't forget it. We won't forget her.
In fact, they found her again 2 days later when she showed up to get clothes and took this photo. But then it was back to work for 3 weeks in Altadena. But with thousands of homes lost, they admit saving her home is bittersweet.
In stark contrast to, you know, all the homes that we didn't save, because it's not a good feeling. I won't ever forget those either.
What did I tell you? But for today, these firefighters say they will savor the joy of this one homeowner and smile that they made a difference on this street and were able to fulfill their promise to Miss Ross and give her something to come home to.
I need to see Will to give him a big hug and tell him thank you. Those guys saved my house.
Joy Benedict.
Our heroes. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. KPBS Midday Edition is airing Imperfect Paradise from LAist Studios. This week's episode shares the story of one man's re-entry from prison through ultra-marathoning in San Diego. And of course, you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm John Carroll. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.